The more you know, the more you grow. My name is Sabrina. I work as an account planner, as a strategist at Adeptus Marketing. We're a Regina-based marketing agency. We do work in province, cross-country. We've done some international work. We do work with a lot of entrepreneurs, which is sometimes some of the funnest work we do, because entrepreneurs naturally are endlessly curious and always have great ideas and are always willing to test and learn more things. And that's sometimes one of the highlights of my job. Obviously, with entrepreneurship, sometimes you have limited funds at the same time. So that's where we get creative with strategy. I'm excited to talk a little bit more about market research. The way I have outlined this presentation is focusing on what might happen in your world, and knowing some of the information that Jessica and Janelle gave me, who you are, what stage of business you're in, what can be most helpful for you. My background, I have worked in a very large array of industries. I've worked in higher education, I've worked in insurance, I've worked in auto, I worked in a software startup for a while where I learned quite a bit. And then in the agency side of marketing, we've worked with tons of different clients, with engineering groups, with not-for-profit groups, in the arts world, kind of all across the scope of industries, which is part of the reason I love my job, because I love to learn and grow and find out what everyone else is doing all the time. But it also gives a good background of all the different industries that we might come across and might touch. I am going to, because we are doing a presentation on market research today, I'm going to do some market research. So you should have got a poll pop up on your screen.
I have to activate it. So do you want me to start with the first one?
Oh, I got it. It's going.
Oh, you got it?
Yeah.
Oh.
Ooh, we have some costume lovers. Okay, while you all answer those questions, I'm going to talk about my goals for today. I hope they're shared goals for today. I kind of talked about my first goal is to demystify marketing research. One of the things the women from West were kind enough to share some of the survey data they got back from some of the people that might be in this presentation today. And one of the things I saw was a lot of you have advanced degrees and have probably done some formal research. So one of my goals is really to demystify it and walk it back to where it starts as a core, and not overcomplicate it. Another goal is to learn. And then the last goal is just to enjoy spending our lunch break together. We're here, we're doing it, we might as well have a bit of fun. Okay, how many people we got in? We only have 12 out of 18. Okay, so I hope we walk away today with what I promised in the description of the presentation. We're going to talk about what is research, what are the different types of research, some easy ways to gather market research, and I'm going to kind of share a story of a market research story, if you will, of something that we did step by step to show how it could be replicated in your industry, how to check assumptions in research, and then some free tools that you can use for information gathering, and then question and answer at the end or throughout. If you have questions, just hit that Q&A and we can answer them throughout.
Yes, that was something I forgot to mention is, and some of you have been using the little question box already, but on the bottom bar on your screen, you should see a little like speech bubble with a question mark in it. Feel free to type any questions in there throughout, and then I can just make note and we can leave them for Sabrina, like she said, throughout or at the end.
Okay, awesome. I don't know if you can see the results, but we have split for most popular. We have a very divided group. 41% of you, 40%, 1% of respondents love a reason to wear a costume. I fall into that camp very heartily so. I love a costume party. I love a reason for a costume. Another 41% of you are very much more of a pumpkin spice latte girly. Scarves and boots and ready for autumnal aesthetic. And then 2 of you are just not into spooky season. I don't know if you're winter people. I don't know if you're summer people, but all right. I'm going to launch another poll. I don't know if no, I can't launch 2 at once. We have a lot of yeses. So even before The question is, do you have a graduate degree or above? And even before I started working on this presentation, I thought about all the people that I interact with that are entrepreneurs, or all of the people that I've ever interacted with that work at WESC or that are WESC members. And one of the drawing line between all those people is that they're very smart people. And I work with a lot of really smart people. And one of the things that really smart people do is they're capable of understanding and taking in a lot of information, but sometimes what happens is then we overcomplicate things. So I kind of touched on one of my goals is to demystify market research and walk it back to some of the beginning stages, because 11 out of the 14 of you that have voted have a graduate degree or above. And I'm guessing, I just launched another poll, that a large part of you have done formal research as part of your education. So the market, yeah, a lot, 4, 5, 7. Okay, so with that in mind, I've planned accordingly. I have done secondary research. We're going to talk about the types of research, but the women from WESC were kind enough to share data with me in advance of this. So I got some secondary research. We're going to talk about that. And right now I'm doing primary research and getting information right back directly from my audience to see who I am talking to. So we're not going to talk about ethics committees here. We're not going to talk about double-blind studies. We are talking about market research that can be done by an entrepreneur in Saskatchewan. So what is market research? Market research is gathering information from potential customers. And I like to keep it as simple as that. There are many methodologies and ways to do that. There's very many formalized ways to do that. But at the heart, market research is gathering information from potential customers. That is the starting part. If you Google around, there are, and I've got types of market research, and I've got 5-ish here, 4 plus a combination. You will find articles on the 8 types, the 5 types, the 3 types, and they get very nuanced in how they describe things. They talk about audience research, consumer research, product research, but we're going to focus on these types of market research today. Primary research, you're getting this research yourself. That is, by any means, then we'll discuss those means. We're doing something that we might have just done right now. I am putting a poll in front of people and getting information back, and I'm performing that research. Secondary research is something that someone else has done and you are utilizing it. So like I said, the women at WESC were kind enough to share with me information about the potential attendees today, and I used that. I read through the information and I was like, okay, I think I have a bit of an idea of who I might be talking to in this presentation. Quantitative at its base is very objective. That's where you get like surveys and rankings, all involving numbers and data. Like 4 out of 17 people don't like fall or Halloween at all. They don't like spooky season. That is quantitative. Qualitative is a little bit more subjective. This is when you're getting feedback from people, what they think, their opinions. So it might be, I don't like spooky season, or I don't like costumes at all because I have trauma from costumes in my childhood when my mom made me dress up all the time, or because I don't like the effort of putting costumes on. That's when you dig into the opinion part, the human part of the quantitative data. And we use a lot of combination of this. So we do a lot of primary research in a very simple manner, and then we combine them. We get the quantitative data and then the qualitative data. We talk to people and we ask them questions. And I'm going to walk through a market research story of how we do that. Okay. So I thought this would be a great example to walk through because it was something that we did for a client that they didn't necessarily think they needed, but we knew we needed it in order to do the campaign they wanted or speak to the audience they wanted. So the project, our client, they wanted to get information out to high school students about choosing a career. Simple, straightforward. I highly doubt any of you in the audience here are high school students. I like to think I take care of my skin, but I clearly do not look like a high school student. I'm clearly not a high school student. None of the people on our team are high school students. None of the people on our client team are high school students. I always kind of like, they have a member of their team who is she's been in the working world for maybe like 3 years. So she's gone through university. She's been working for a few years, and they're always like, oh, she's close to high school students. I'm like, no, she's not. We're not. That's not the audience. We have errors in judgment when we're trying to like project ourselves into audiences. It's like we need to actually talk to high school students. So we needed some research before we started writing a marketing plan and creating work to target high school students. We're like, okay, how do we talk to high school students? So we started thinking, can we visit a classroom? And what kind of context or what kind of avenues do we have to talk to this audience? So sometimes a classroom is hard to get into. Obviously, it's outside parties going into a high school. There's a lot of barriers to jump through to get that approved. So we also started like, oh, can we go to dance classes? Or do we have friends' kids that play on sports teams? Where do we have access to this audience that we can talk to them and get feedback from them? And that's kind of going to be a line that is drawn through this whole presentation is where is your audience and how can you talk to them? And in a non-complicated way. We'll talk later, but are you selling a retail product and is it the cashier? They have a lot of information. Is it someone on the retail floor in the business? I did some work for a retailer in the city. They have 11, I think 12 locations across Saskatchewan and Winnipeg or in Manitoba. And I just went and sat in their store for 5 hours and worked and listened to what was going around. So where is that audience and how can we talk to them? So in this case, we proposed visiting a classroom and talking to students. So we wanted to go in and get primary research. We wanted to talk directly to the audience. And then we wanted to get qualitative, both data and quantitative research, so their opinions and feedback. So our methods, I don't know how many of you know high school students. I think a lot of you have kids. I don't know what age they are, but they're not really like, you walk into a classroom and they're not usually ready to like put their hand up and talk to the presenter. So we walked in and we're like, okay, how can we get information from these high school students in the least painful way? So we were like, you know what? They probably aren't opposed to like answering a survey on their phone. So we walked into that classroom, we told them why we were there, what we wanted to do, and then we had them scan a QR code and take a survey. So it was just, they all went through and it was a Google form that we set up, and they answered a bunch of questions about their potential career choices, what they were looking at, how they got information, who they got information from. So from that, we had quantitative data, and there were 37 students in that class. So we had a pretty good sample size. We then, from that data that we got the survey back, and then we put it up on the screen and we walked through with the students each of the answers, and then they were willing to talk to us about why. So then we walked through, okay, 50% of you said you take the bus to school. Can we talk about that? Why do you do that? Who takes it? Where are you going? What are you interested in? Are there ads there? What do you do while you're on the bus? And we started to get some qualitative data from these students. We do this a lot with clients. We do a lot of phone calls or walking into stores and asking people things. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. So in that case, we surveyed 37 students. They were in grade 11 and 12. From that, we were able to compile an overview of all the feedback we got. We had some data that we could present to the client and base our decisions for campaigns or for pieces that they produced that we could share with the client and then make informed decisions on. And I'll give you an example of what that looked like. So we had quantitative data, which is this, numbers. We asked them, where do you see ads and commercials? And they were able to choose multiple examples or multiple options. And this is exactly what I wrote up after and shared with the client and shared with our team so that we had information to make decisions on. So of all of these platforms, this is where they answered that they hear ads and commercials. And we're going to talk about assumptions later and checking your assumptions and checking your data that you get back. So for this campaign, we might be working with a media company that has different research, but this was super valuable. A lot of them said Instagram. A lot of them said TikTok. A lot of them said YouTube, which was interesting. And then in this case, we reflected this information back to them. And then we're like, okay, what are you using Instagram for? Or what are you watching on YouTube? What kind of ads are you seeing on there? I don't think we talked to them about stream music. How many of them had a paid Spotify account versus how many of them were using the free Spotify account? Then we also got qualitative data. So we started also asking them about career fairs. And this was super interesting because this was pieces that we could share back with the client. Like, instead of 75% of students said career fairs were helpful, we got real information. Like, a lot of them had enjoyed the information about the pamphlet. They said they were super helpful. They talked about what happened at career fairs that was super valuable to them. And that was all information that we could use then to plan a campaign for the client. It's like, oh, these students, their eyes are here. This is where they're getting their information. And this is only a small piece of it. But that was a very simple way that we went out and had a sample size of 37 students, and we were able to get great information and was not needlessly complex. And we were able to get primary information right from the source. We talk a lot about kitchen marketing at Adeptus, and kitchen marketing comes from the idea of sitting around a kitchen table. Everyone's got a kitchen table. If you get into formalized research groups, sometimes you'd call this a focus group, which then has a price tag, a hefty one. So we often talk about kitchen marketing, which is gathering information directly from a bunch of people. I'll stay on this. One of the clients that we have, we're working on a project to turn flax, which is a crop that we grow in Saskatchewan, into biofuel. So flax is a plant, they use the plant part, but then there's the chive, which is the stalk part of the plant, and that's not utilized in Saskatchewan. So they're like, this could be utilized for biofuel. But nobody on the team, or our team, of course, was a farmer. And this product comes from farmers. And we identified that as a huge gap in our knowledge, because we are going to be talking to this audience and we don't know what their concerns are. We don't know even how they talk about their product. We don't know what has been tried in this area before. So we went out to various rural areas around Saskatchewan and had coffee and donut parties and just talked to farmers. And at the baseline, that seems overly simple, but that is market research. We are going right to the source, and we're getting qualitative data from a primary audience and then using it to make informed decisions. Another case, one of our other clients is working on cat litter. So developing a new form of cat litter, which is very sexy. But where is the audience for that? One of the audiences they have identified where they could get research and feedback from is the Humane Society. Another audience that they identified we could get research back from is the cashiers at pet food stores or pet care stores. So one of our team members went right to a teller at, I don't know if it was Pet Mart or where, and said, which one of the cat litters is the best-selling cat litter? And the cashier said, oh, I don't know what it's called, but it's that black bag over there. Like, more than half the people walk out with this black bag. Oh, okay. So we've performed some market research. We've gotten some data that we can then start to make decisions on. Why are people buying this cat litter? Do they have really good branding? Maybe. And we start identifying these questions we can ask further. Do they have really good branding? Or is the product superior? Or is it cheaper? Why are people making these decisions? We've gotten a first step where we can start probing the rest of these things. So if you've started with a base of going out and gathering information, one of the things that we always do, or you always need to do, is check your assumptions. So I'm going to talk a little bit about confirmation bias, and I'm going to tell a few stories about how this has happened with clients. One of the things that we run into is some people are really confident about their opinions, but that doesn't necessarily equal research that's valuable. So I was working with a client that has stores, a store in Regina and a store in Saskatoon. And one of the products that they sell are pool tables. And I was trying to dig into who buys pool tables, why do they buy pool tables, who's the decision maker in the spending on a pool table. So I talked to the general manager of the Regina store, and he was like, it's the men. The men make the decision. They don't even, this is a heteronormative relationship. They don't even consult their wives. They just come in and they know what they want, and they buy a pool table, and we don't even need to talk to any other audience. It's men. And then I talked to the general manager of the Saskatoon store, and he was like, oh, no. It's the women that make the decision. We need to convince the women that it is fun for the whole family, that it is a long-term investment for bringing their family together. The men want the pool tables, but the women for sure are the people that decide if they're going to get a pool table or not. And if I would have just listened to one of them, their confidence in who their audience is, I might have been wrong. If I had listened to the other one, their confidence in who their audience is, I might have been wrong. And that's where often we test things. Is it men? Is it women? Do we open up target the marketing to everyone? But I always am like, confidence doesn't equal research, or confidence doesn't equal facts. Years ago, I had a person tell me I couldn't paint my bedroom dark turquoise because you can't paint the bedroom a dark color. And she was exceedingly confident about it. But that was not real. She was wrong. It's wonderful. It looks great. The other assumption that often happens is facts versus feelings. I mentioned it before with the client and trying to reach students, trying to reach high school students. Often people are unable to remove their own biases from the opinions they share. So we have clients who are like, well, I have a high school student. So therefore they're clouded by the judgment of their high school student being like every high school student. Or they're in the target audience and they think like everyone else, or they think everyone else thinks like them. Most people are quite intuitive. They rely a lot on instincts over data. So we always like to have a bit of data and a bit of qualitative information. And we usually handle this by asking a wider and wider audience. We do a lot of, sometimes we do those qualitative interviews like we did with the students, but we just ask a client give us 10 different people that touch this product or touch this industry, or that might be potential customers. And we ask them all the same questions and see what threads, without any bias in mind. We're not trying to find information. We're not trying to bolster our opinions. We're trying to be open to whatever feedback that we get. The other thing that happens in entrepreneurship around facts versus feelings is that I've often watched great entrepreneurs have to trust their gut and walk through many facts or many other people's feedback telling them that they can't do it or that it's wrong. That's the thing that I find the most impressive about so many entrepreneurs in my life, is that they knew the product or the service or the business that they were offering made sense, and they got out and they tested it. We talked a little bit earlier the other day about Airbnb. When Airbnb first came out, no one thought anyone would ever open up their home to strangers. But the people that started Airbnb had experiences that they knew that would work. So despite all of the facts in the way, or all of the overwhelming opinions of other people, they were able to trust the facts that they had and push forward. Do I have any questions? Does anyone have any questions about what we've covered so far? I'm just scrolling through. No, all good. Okay. We promised in this presentation also that we give some free tools for information gathering. We've talked about it, but I'm a big fan of just phone calls and interviewing and talking to people. One of those assumptions or biases is always people are often connected with people like them. So you have to really be cognizant of the fact that if you're calling all your friends and asking their opinions, they might be like you. So reaching outside your network or reaching to people that are different than you, and getting that qualitative data, talking to them on the phone or interviewing. Social media polling is a very simple way to gather information back. That, of course, completely depends on the industry you're in. Sometimes that audience isn't the right place for them. We use a lot of Google Forms just because it's easy for people to use. It's a really good way to collect data quickly. We've used ChatGPT before. You have to be careful about asking the questions right, and also taking the information with a grain of salt, as always, using your expert opinion to go through the answers you get. But it is a good source of consolidating a bunch of information in one place. Sometimes we use a tool called Answer the Public. And I think you're not going to be able to see this screen. But I've opened this tab, Answer the Public, and just typed in the word sunscreen, and it gives you feedback of what people are looking for across search engines. Like, what is the best sunscreen? What chemicals are in sunscreen? What percentage of coverage do I need for sunscreen? And you can start looking in any industry or product or environment that you have a potential business in. What are the biggest questions, or what are the biggest queries or searches that people are asking for? Google Scholar is a really good place to get official research. I'm sure many of you that have done research know about it, but if you just type into Google Scholar, it'll bring up research papers that you can then sort through, instead of just the general search that you're exposed to the entirety of the internet across Google. Saskatchewan Trade and Expert Partnership, or STEP, is an organization in Saskatchewan, and the membership, I have notes here, a pre-market membership. So if you're pre-launching your business, is $400 for the year, and it gets you 25 hours of research and market intelligence by professional researchers. So we've used it before for different clients of ours. You've used it before, and you're getting professional researchers to get data in whatever your industry you're in. And we got some, for one of our clients, we got some invaluable information from them. Or in the past, we have encouraged clients to reach out to a university business school, and ask a professor to use to do a test case, or hire a student to do research for you. So those are some of the free tools for information gathering. I always go back to, I love phone calls and interviews in concert with some hard data